Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're trekking deep into the modern cybersecurity landscape. Now, I want you to think of today's digital world not as some secure, walled garden, but rather as a vast and honestly pretty dangerous wilderness. For the longest time, organizations relied heavily on passive fences. Things like firewalls, basic antivirus software, automated alerts, just hoping to keep the bad guys out. But as we're going to explore today, those fences, they just aren't enough anymore. The predators have evolved. They become so much stealthier, which means our defense strategies absolutely must evolve too. Basically, we have to become the hunters. To navigate this wilderness, we need a survival map, right? So here is our agenda for today's journey. We'll start with Section 1, the cybersecurity wilderness. Then Section 2, what is threat hunting? Section 3, the 3 phases of hunting. Section 4, hunting strategies and methods. Moving on to Section 5, intelligence versus active hunting. And we'll wrap it all up with Section 6, tips for a successful hunt. All right, Section 1, the cybersecurity wilderness, advanced threats. And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying reality we're dealing with today. We're talking about advanced persistent threats, or APTs, and highly sophisticated ransomware gangs. These digital predators are specifically engineered to quietly slip right past those traditional automated fences we just talked about. They don't just break the door down and make a massive racket. No, they hide in the brush, sometimes for months, just blending into the background, waiting for the absolute perfect moment to strike. And if you want proof of how real and how pressing this threat actually is, just take a look at this market data. The global threat hunting market is currently valued at $4.89 billion US. But get this, it's projected to reach an incredible $16.25 billion by 2033. That is a 16.3% compound annual growth rate. This literally proves that major industries worldwide, from global finance to healthcare to government, are aggressively investing their budgets into proactive defense. Why? Because the threat is incredibly real, and quite frankly, waiting for an alarm to go off means you're already too late. Moving on to Section 2. What is threat hunting? Active defense. So, if the digital landscape is this unpredictable wilderness, the cybersecurity analyst is our active hunter. Instead of waiting safely inside the fortress for a perimeter alarm to trigger, this professional steps out into the wild. Cyber threat hunting is an active information security process, searching iteratively through logs to detect indicators of compromise, tactics, and hidden threats evading existing security. Now, I want to really emphasize the word active here. This is definitely not passive monitoring. It's a deliberate, active search. It's very much like a tracker in a physical forest looking for snapped branches or faint footprint impressions. To actually pull this off, hunters require some seriously specific high-level skills. They rely heavily on human intuition, years of experience, data analytics to spot mathematical anomalies, reverse engineering to tear apart suspicious malware, and a deep, fundamental knowledge of operating systems to know exactly where a clever attacker might try to hide. Which brings us to Section 3, the 3 phases of hunting. Systematic tracking. Now, you might be asking yourself, what actually triggers a hunt in the first place? How do these analysts even begin tracking down these digital predators? Well, it's not just blind wandering through server logs. It's actually a highly systematic and disciplined process, broken down into 3 distinct phases. Step 1 is the trigger. A hunter always starts with a reason, a formulated hypothesis, maybe a strange anomaly spotted in the network data, or even breaking news of a fresh zero-day exploit. Once that trigger is pulled, we move to Step 2, investigation. Here, the hunter proactively searches the environment. Get this, they actually assume they are already compromised, and they work backward through the data to prove or disprove their hypothesis. Finally, we reach Step 3, resolution. This is where the hunter answers the essential questions: who, what, when, where, and why. Ultimately, they gather this crucial intelligence to flawlessly execute the incident response plan, closing the loop on the attacker. Let's step into Section 4, hunting strategies and methods, tactical approaches. Let's move to this next one and see how this builds, because a good hunter doesn't use the exact same trap for every single animal, right? Depending on the specific situation and the type of threat they suspect, our hunters can take a few primary approaches. First up, you have structured hunting. This is a very systematic search based on predefined criteria, which makes it perfect for tracking down specific, known malware strains. Next is unstructured hunting. This one is much more exploratory and open-ended. A hunter will rely on pure human intuition and the company's risk registers to hunt for unknown or brand new threats, targeting their high-value data. And finally, situational hunting. This is targeted around specific events or entities. For instance, a threat hunter might actually partner up with HR to track the network access of departing employees just to make sure they aren't taking sensitive data with them out the door. Or they might launch a situational hunt during a major corporate merger to ensure no threat actors slip in during the transition. Now, within those broad types, hunters use very specific methodologies. They might be intelligence-based, where they feed known inputs, like bad IP addresses or file hash values, into their systems. Or they might be hypotheses-based, relying heavily on machine learning analytics. But the true standout here is using indicators of attack, or IOAs. This is widely considered the most proactive technique on the list. Why? Because instead of just looking for static, leftover clues from the past, it focuses on identifying adversary behaviors in real time. It perfectly aligns with frameworks like MITRE ATT&CK to spot the actual actions an attacker takes. And of course, hybrid hunting simply combines all these methods to give a security team a customized, comprehensive sweep of the whole network. Okay, Section 5, Intelligence versus Active Hunting, a critical distinction. People in the industry often confuse the map for the journey itself. Understanding the difference between these two concepts is an absolutely critical distinction that you must take away from this explainer. Look at the left. Threat intelligence. That's the collection and analysis of information about potential threats from open source intelligence and various data feeds. It is incredibly important, for sure, but it is essentially a passive collection of data. On the right, we have threat hunting. This is the active, human-driven process that leverages that intelligence to proactively search for anomalies. So the crucial point is, intelligence just provides the context. It gives you the terrain map and the weather report. But threat hunting, that is the physical execution of hiking into the woods and mitigating those hidden threats yourself. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Tips for a Successful Hunt. Actionable advice. So, now that we thoroughly understand the landscape and the methodologies, let's look at some actionable tips for survival in this digital wilderness. The absolute most foundational rule is this. You have to identify your organization's normal to easily spot abnormal threats. You simply cannot spot a dangerous anomaly if you have no idea what everyday, normal operational activity looks like. For example, if a marketing employee suddenly downloads 10 gigabytes of data from a secure server at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, is that a malicious insider threat or just an automated system backup? To filter out this kind of noise, security teams utilize user and entity behavior analytics, or UEBA, and powerful platforms like Xavium Threat Hunter. These tools establish a baseline of normal conditions so hunters can instantly spot when something deviates from that baseline. Our next tip relies on a very specific strategic framework. Step 1, observe by routinely collecting logs. Step 2, orient by cross-checking that data against existing intelligence. Step 3, decide on the correct course of action. And Step 4, act by executing the incident response plan. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this highly effective, repeatable process is known as the OODA loop, and it's actually a strategy borrowed directly from military warfare tactics. Fighter pilots use the OODA loop to outmaneuver adversaries in fast-paced dogfights, and cyber threat hunters use the exact same mental framework to outmaneuver attackers hidden inside an enterprise network. Pretty cool, right? Which brings us to a provocative question I want to leave you with today. Are you just relying on automated fences, or are you actively hunting the predators already inside your network? As we've seen throughout this explainer, the digital wilderness is growing vastly more dangerous, and passive defenses are just not going to cut it anymore. I really hope diving into this source material has given you the map you need to reassess your own proactive threat management resources and leaves you wanting to dive even deeper into the fascinating world of active security operations. Keep your eyes open, and happy hunting.